Great Depression as part of the Federal Writers Project, an arm of the Works Progress Administration. These interviews, Jones-Rogers writes, show that white girls were trained in slave ownership, discipline, and mastery, sometimes from birth, even being given enslaved people as gifts when they were as young as 9 months old.
When are we gonna get to the BBC parts?
You guys hear that shit?
Sexual exploitation.
You guys hear that?
Sexual exploitation.
When are we gonna get to the BBC
One of
parts?
the
You guys
most
hear that?
distressing aspects of the abuse endured by black male slaves at the hands of elite white women was sexual exploitation. Although the dominant narrative often portrays white women as passive or innocent, there were instances where they actively engaged in non-consensual sexual relationships and rape, exploiting their power and control over black male slaves. These actions perpetuated a cycle of sexual violence.
He's gonna go ahead and paint a narrative right now. Watch this shit.
The fuck is this shit? The fuck type of tool is this? Just had this shit around our necks, just taking our BBCs. Yo, this is crazy.
Further dehumanizing the already enslaved. Here's one example of such many cases found in the autobiography, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, where the author Harriet Jacobs, who being once a slave, talks about how planters' daughters would take advantage of male slaves. They know that the women slaves are subject to their father's authority in all things, and in some cases they exercise the same authority over the men slaves. I have myself seen the master of such a household whose head was bowed down in shame, for it was known in the neighborhood that his daughter had selected one of the meanest slaves on his plantation to be the father of his first grandchild. She did not make her advances to her equals, nor even to her father's more intelligent servants.
Damn, he was just forced. So the BBC was just... I told you guys, that's how light-skinned black people existed. From slavery. I've been telling y'all.
He's gonna go ahead and try to relate to this shit also. Watch. He might give a fake story on how women had him, you know,
lighter skinned black people
slaved and shit and just fucking and all that. Watch. When this dude is the biggest cornball ever.
And she went and they said she went and chose the meanest. Basically, when it says she went and chose the meanest slave, that means she just probably had them all in a row, and just got like a rod and would pick up their BBCs with the rod and just whichever one flopped the lowest.
Jesus Christ, bro! Holy fucking shit!
That's the fuck she was doing.
Yo, this guy's weird, man. This is a weird ass individual.
They said she chose the biggest, meanest slave.
The fuck is going on with the filter? He's getting topped by the clown?
Exercise the same authority over the men slaves. I have myself seen the master of such a household whose head was bowed down in shame, for it was known in the neighborhood that his daughter had selected one of the meanest slaves on his plantation to be the father of his first grandchild.
Damn, and the dad was cool with it too. So they used to purposely breed mulatto babies.
You giving me
That's crazy. That's like, I knew this shit happened already just by
Yo, Dante, bro, you really want me to play that shit?
It's even crazier.
You giving me
like, I used to joke with this shit all the time, but
Styles being instrumental.
She did not make her advances to her equals, nor even to her father's more intelligent servants. She selected the most brutalized, over whom her authority could be exercised with less fear of exposure. The kind of relationship described here by the author is clearly of a sexually predatory behavior. And such an act, as Jacobs confirms, was not uncommon, nor can it be classified as consensual in any meaningful sense of the word. It, in fact, constitutes a form of sexual abuse, if not rape. We thus see that plantation mistresses and elite women, like their male counterparts, were able to sexually control and abuse their slaves. Another way in which the planter-class white women were able to exercise sexual control over slaves was by threatening to accuse them of rape or attempted rape if they did not agree to sex. In doing this, elite white women used one of the primary instruments of patriarchal repression, the idea that they were weak and in need of white male protection, and by extension, in need of control and domination by white men, to exercise racial control over black male slaves. Possible causes of sexual exploitation.
Yeah, they said either you give me the BBC or else.
Why these women chose to sexually abuse slaves probably varied by situation. Perhaps some of them were simply bored or sexually frustrated. But perhaps, at least on a subconscious level,
And really had us out there with cloth. With a cloth and a fedora. With our BBC swinging. That's crazy. That's fun. Yo. I don't see why black people, I don't even know why we even complain anymore. Like, look how they had us, bro. Had us out here raking leaves with BBs with a fucking goddamn fedora. Ass cheeks out there. If it was drawn like this, that means this shit was real.
It looks like the Khan drew it.
For sure. Remember, art is always depicted off something that is of reality or was reality.
Yo, it actually does, bro. Holy shit. Isaac, after this shit.
They also, the white guys used to also booty bust the male slaves as well. They used to use it as a form of quote unquote punishment. That's what they used to label it as punishment. Yup. Let me get my food real quick. Trust me, we wouldn't have been sexualized if we didn't have BBCs, that's for sure.
Sexually exploiting slaves was a means of compensating for their lack of power in other aspects of their lives. Planter-class women were considered the property of their husbands and lacked considerable sexual agency relative to men. It is possible the sexual exploitation of slaves by women who had little power in relation to white men was a source of enjoyment that created a feeling of power. This is not to excuse the actions of sexually abusive white women, nor is it to suggest that
just had two men just going cold.
Female sexual abuse of slave men would not have occurred had women enjoyed a higher status in society. However, just as slave-owning white women often took out their frustrations on slaves through excessive cruelty and violence, they probably also used sex as a means of domination and control in a society in which they were relatively powerless. Their freedom and mobility was severely limited. For example, they were generally not allowed to travel without an older male chaperone. Spousal abuse was often considered a legitimate method for men to control their wives in the antebellum era. Indeed, in private, many plantation women were unhappy with their lack of freedom and the expectation that they remain dutiful, obedient, pleasant, and cheerful, while their husbands had affairs with or raped female slaves. Knowing that the mixed race slave children who surrounded them were their husbands' offspring was both humiliating and hard.
Damn, look how they drew the light skins back then. Long ass hair, curls, pale skin. That's just crazy. Like, when you really think about it, black people, we really fucked up, low key. Like, colorism and shit, it was the cause of slavery. That's why we started that issue. Because that shit rooted from slavery when you really think about it. Those are two mulatto children right there. These paintings right here represent two mixed children.
Knowing that the mixed race slave children
Oh,
who
CEO.
surrounded them were their
You already
husbands'
know what it is.
offspring was both humiliating and heartbreaking. Historian Catherine Clinton, 1982, has this to say: if plantation mistresses could live above reproach, their husbands, fathers, sons, and brothers could boast of the superiority of their civilization. She further goes ahead and terms them prisoners in disguise. Southern women, who generally married at a younger age than those in the North, not infrequently at 15 or 16 years old, were often left abandoned on plantations while their husbands traveled for business, pleasure, or military duty. The life of a plantation mistress was often lonely.
Damn,
This
so
man
they was
ogre,
taking
bro.
BBC while the husband was on the road doing everything else. This shit popped up in my recommended, so I wasn't looking for this shit.
Yeah, that's cap.
Physical abuse. By 1830, slavery was primarily located in the South, where it existed in many different forms. African American.
All right, that's all I wanted to see with the BBC part. This shit basically already knew. We allowed to watch this dress hall from Target?